Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla, let's go over the market and figure out what we can expect moving into this week. And this should be a pretty, hopefully at least, fingers crossed, a pretty, massive week for Tesla. Right now, there's a chance that most of the week is still kind of boring, but I think maybe even as early as Wednesday, but probably Thursday and Friday, is when the action should really start picking up. Why? Well, if you somehow live under a rock, we do have that shareholder meeting and, well, quote unquote event, if you will, on Thursday, just not too long after market. I think it's 4:30 Eastern, if I'm not mistaken. And the reason that's important is because, well, that's where we find out the votes. What actually happened during the votes that are pretty much being cast by shareholders for Elon's pay package. There's a lot of drama, a lot of just a substantial amount of uncertainty around that. And that's where that's all going to get decided. And this massive sideways action that we've been getting should, in theory, get unleashed to a direction. So let's figure out what that direction could be. So if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, my membership section is live. The link is down below. You get access to all my intraday thoughts, post updates for just $3 a month. So if you're interested, definitely check that out. We'd love to have you there. But jumping into it, let's talk about Tesla stock and the chart. Now, I do want to quickly start off with actually options flow. So Tesla, nowhere really to be found on most bullish or bearish options flow, right? Nothing too crazy. It's probably somewhere here, but nothing worthy of mentioning. I guess it's almost 7 million here. But the things that are worth mentioning are going to be a couple things here. So this is the bot options on Blackbox, which I have a link to Blackbox and Chutterflow down below if you're interested for options flow and service with a discount, of course, using my link. But anyway, jumping into it, 2.26 million put came in on Tesla around 1 p.m. Eastern for this Friday, actually. 165 strike. So clearly someone's expecting a move to the downside, up maybe leading into the shareholder vote, maybe after the shareholder vote. Who knows for sure? But I feel like if this was after the shareholder vote, they would have got it later. So maybe they're expecting a bleed and sell off into the shareholder vote. That is a possibility, right? There is a possibility we do maybe sell off or rally into the shareholder vote. But what I personally believe is if we do sell off into the shareholder vote, as of right now and as it stands right this very moment, I'm a firm believer that, especially if we sell off into the shareholder vote and come down to 168, 170, maybe even as low as the 160s, that's a good sign. In my opinion, that's a good sign. Why is that a good sign? I'm actually gonna remove this one here. Why is that a good sign? Well, simply because I personally will believe that this is just to kind of shake the weak hands, if that makes sense, right? It's kind of like a scare tactic. And I think it'll just be a strong reversal not too far out after that. That's just what I personally believe as of right now. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition. But moving over to sold options over here, right on Chutterflow, what we have is, well, we actually have a decent amount of sold puts on Tesla coming out for some this week, some next week, some even a month out. For instance, we have 1.1 million sold put for Tesla for 2 weeks out, June 21st, a 175 strike. So clearly they're feeling fairly bullish. I wouldn't say it's extremely bullish, but pretty bullish that we don't go too much lower, or if we do, that we most likely bounce up not too long after that, because they believe Tesla will be at or higher 175 June 21st. So that's that. On top of that, there's a bunch of other ones. Like you have a 790 here. Yeah, so you have 3 in a row here for pretty much about 1.5 million, we'll say. Also June 21st. Also 170 strike, right? 175 rather strike. So, a lot of came in here, right? Another 700K down here, exact same thing, 621, 175 strike. So a lot of whales are expecting Tesla to be at or higher than 175 by next Friday. So it doesn't matter if we dip this week. They don't care if we dip this week. All they care about is, even if we dip, do we just rip right after that and essentially ultimately end above 175 by next Friday? That's all they care about. They don't really care what happens right now. So keep that in mind. That's important to understand. That's the beauty of sold options, in my opinion. Now, moving over to the actual technical analysis, let's talk about it. So I have put my chart back into linear chart, right? Obviously, we talked about the linear versus logarithmic versions, especially when it comes to this trend line. But what I did to kind of make sense, because the logarithmic chart was better with this trend line versus the linear chart. But the way you can kind of fix that and make the linear chart still have a valid trend line is while making this kind of dual trend line that shows and touches all the wicks pretty well. You can see here as it's kind of coming into here all the way from this top range over here, right? You can see it's touching all of these wicks that we've so far rejected at and cannot break above, while also, of course, we have this horizontal resist or support line right here, which is, of course, so far has been holding us decently well, which is pretty much that 173-ish range. So this is still that kind of battle right now between bulls and bears, right? We're just kind of consolidating in here, and in theory we can easily consolidate here until pretty much Wednesday or Thursday, until that shareholder meeting event actually takes place. Hopefully you guys can hear the dog outside. This dog outside just barking nonstop. But, there's a possibility for us to still consolidate here, right? Especially if we have a gap update tomorrow, right? Tomorrow could be another day just consolidating around the mid 170s. But let's take a look at the actual, what can actually happen if we do break below? So like I said before, right, if we do break below 173, we close a daily candle below 173, which can happen going into the event, which I actually would say is potentially a good sign, potentially, you know, a bear trap, is the fact that, well, okay, if we do that, we'd obviously come down to about 170 to 168, probably that same day, honestly. And then I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, it opens up the door for 160 to 163, potentially the next day, or just maybe not too far after that. Maybe even after the shareholder event, we get a little bit of a more sell-off into a strong bounce. That is still a possibility too, right? But if we do lose 173 and we lose and we close daily candles below that, I think 170 to 168, and then further below that, of course, 160, 163 is very much in the cards. But keep in mind, we do have this inverted head and shoulders pattern, right? These blue lines right here, you can see still unaffected. This is still a very valid pattern. This is still very, you know, real possibility. And even if we come down to one of those two levels, like I just mentioned, it's still completely valid. This pattern is absolutely valid still, at least in my eyes it is. So keep that in mind. Even if we do come down to those levels, in my opinion, there's still potentially a pretty powerful bullish pattern in play, and it could be a pretty phenomenal buy the dip opportunity. In theory, of course, obviously things can change, but as of right now, that's how I view it. Now, if we do break above this trend line at some point, maybe going into the shareholder vote, post shareholder vote, whatever, the level you want to be really looking for that we just pretty much rejected at today, once again, as we did the past 2 days, is going to be pretty much about that 180-ish level, and even 185 will be even, you know, better, I guess, of a confirmation. But honestly, even 180 to as high as 183, it's already honestly pretty damn good. So if we can even break above 180 to 183, that's already a damn good sign, in my opinion. 185 is just even further confirmation for it. But that's going to be the levels to look out for the top side. And if we do break that, I think ultimately, at the very least, we come up to about this 198 double top, if not all the way up to this 205 level that we did get rejected at before, and actually found some rough support over here way back when. So, you know, those are the main levels I'm still looking at. Now, when it comes to the actual indicators at the bottom, there's a lot of conflicting results here, unfortunately. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Took away the volume by accident. There's a lot of conflicting results here, right? You have MACD on the daily chart, it's flipped bearish. It's still bearish. It's still, you know, not obviously bullish, right? RSI pretty neutral, arguably moving to the downside, you can see over here, but we could be potentially setting up a hidden bullish divergence if we do come down. I don't know if you guys, hopefully you guys don't hear that dog. It's just not barking nonstop. Stochastic did flip bullish, but it is pretty much on the verge of flipping bearish here, right? So there's some conflicting results here, in my opinion, right? Over on the weekly chart, also conflicting results, right? We have the MACD still flip bullish, right? The MACD still flip bullish, you can see over here, right? Still looking pretty solid. Maybe if we do get that move to the downside, like I said, that could be the MACD, almost like doing a retest here, the green coming down to retest the red line on the breakout. That is a possibility. But RSI, neutral, in my opinion, and stochastic, you can see, is starting to really curl. It's really starting to lose that momentum on the weekly. So some conflicting results, right? Stochastic still bullish, but looking like it wants to flip bearish. MACD still bullish though. So a lot of things that are just really conflicting. Then it just feels like a lot of, you know, of this pressure just being, it's just waiting to get unloaded potentially after Thursday. So unfortunately, it's kind of like one of those situations where, you know, we have to wait for that, you know, event, if you will, to really decide the direction. But there's a lot of conflicting, you know, things, if you will, in these indicators, the MACD, this RSI, even though RSI is actually pretty neutral and stochastic. So another way you can look at it, though, let's take a look at it like this. Is actually quickly here, we'll look at this market bias. Right, market bias, obviously red equals bearish, green equals bullish. Pretty simple. Well, you can see still bullish, even though we're pretty much near the bottom of it. We're still technically bullish on this market bias, right? It is showing some weakness here with the dark green, but you know, it's still technically holding up. So that's a good sign to see. Another way you can look at it to make it even more simple is going to be putting up these two bad boys right here. The 100-day moving average, which is above us, sitting at currently around pretty much 180, really, has been rejecting us for quite some time. As you can see, it's kind of curling with us over here. And on top of that, we have that 50-day moving average, which is this green line here, currently sitting at about 172, which we did bounce off of just a few days ago. You can see almost to perfection. So pretty much another way to look at it is, well, really breaking below one of these and closing a daily candle below or above one of these is also confirmation for most likely a move continued in that respective direction. Obviously, bullish for 100-day cross, bearish for the 50-day cross. So it really just comes down to patience. I'm just selling options here. If we do come down, I have options down here. I have some options in the 170s, pretty much a little bit lower than here. I have one that's already in the money, but again, I want to make it very clear. I am, of course, at the moment underweight Tesla. I am holding less than I normally would, but that's why I'm being aggressive with options sold. So if you do continue going sideways, I will most likely close most of them out for whatever profit that they have prior to the shareholder event, assuming we've continued to go sideways, and then I'll probably reassess post events. But if we do continue, you know, dragging down to the downside, well, I'm happy buying shares pretty much within this range right here. This like massive range down here, in my opinion, is a buy zone, right? I personally view that as a buy zone, and I will be happy to continue adding shares in this general area, right? And that's just the way I look at it personally, right? Again, I sell options, right? I don't really care too much about the short-term price action because I just sell options anyways. So to me, the sideways action is actually kind of good. I like the sideways action. I just sell on the volatility intraday, and then I just kind of let it bleed out throughout the rest of the day as theta decays. I'm okay with that, and that's what I like to do. So I have sold calls and I have sold puts. But yeah, anyways, that's kind of what I'm seeing, and that's kind of what I'm doing. So let me know what you think down below. Thank you so much for watching. I think this is going to be a pretty massive week. Might still be a couple more boring days, but maybe even as early as Wednesday, I think we can start getting some action finally, and we can finally pick a direction and get out of this consolidation that we've been in for quite some time. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.